Welcome back, America. You, being a voter or a caucus participant in Iowa tomorrow, you've told the world that immigration is a very, very crucial issue to you. Doesn't seem to be to Joe Biden, so nobody better than our friend Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, just how badly has Joe Biden destroyed our border, immigration, our national security, and all that goes along with it within our culture and society?
No nation in modern history, Mark, that I can think of has self-inflicted a wound so grave and so deep as what Joe Biden has done to our border. The events that are happening now on our border typically take place after suffering a crippling military defeat. In other words, to lose territorial sovereignty, territorial integrity to that degree, to have that fully erased of a border, normally would have to be prefaced by losing a major military conflict to the point where your army has been battered into submission. Yet all of this has been done voluntarily, willfully, deliberately. Look, there's some numbers that we all know, right? They say they've apprehended about 8 million illegal aliens. The vast majority of them released into the country. We know there's at least another 2 million or so gotaways. But there's another group that we don't know anything about, which are the unknowns. These are individuals that don't come up on sensors, that we don't have obvious intelligence across the border. That's an even larger number than I would assume the known gotaways. And so now you're looking at well over 10 million illegal aliens from over 150 different countries during just a 3-year time period. The whole state of Montana is 1 million people. So what are the effects of this on society? Like, you know, Mark, because this has been your life's work, how hard is it to inculcate in people the traditions and values of constitutionalism? How much work is involved in raising up any one individual person in this way of thinking? Now we have 10+ million people who are not schooled or trained in our Constitution, in our system of government, in our way of life, and whose first act upon entering this country was the willful commission of a crime continued every day thereafter by stealing Social Security numbers, working illegally, stealing identities, and evading law enforcement at every single step. So now you have a situation where the country is being changed socially, culturally, constitutionally, in nearly irrevocable ways. Then you look at the impact on our public school system, where you have school districts that have a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen different languages being spoken, where students who are already behind because of the pandemic cannot get the instruction, the care they need. Then you have housing costs spiraling out of control, struggling to keep up because these individuals are coming in out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, where are they going to live? Where are they going to sleep? Where is there going to be a roof over their head? Then the public safety component. You have an open door to the world's criminal cartels and gangs. Every foreign gang, every transnational gang in this country can now bring in an unlimited number of additional recruits to replenish their ranks. Again, you, Mark, having worked in a background of criminal justice, understand to put one gang member in prison requires how many hours of investigation, how many search warrants, how many wiretaps, a jury trial, how much work to just get one gang member in prison. 5, 6, 7 years of work of the government to get one person behind bars. One day on Joe Biden's open border, you can bring in 10, 50, 100, 200, 500 brand new recruits to backfill. Then you look at the impact economically. A stable middle class is the essence of the American dream and the essence of a stable American society. When you have millions of low-wage workers who are unskilled, who oftentimes are not literate in their own languages, coming into a job market, you drive down wages, working conditions, and job opportunities for everybody, including recent immigrants who've arrived legally in the past 5 or 10 years. So now they're not joining the middle class. Now their children aren't joining the middle class. This creates enormous instability, economic instability, social instability, cultural instability. What fills that void? Well, that's where the Democrats come in with the welfare state. That's where the Democrats come in with redistributionist scheme and socialist economics, and then teaching people to hate the very system that they entered into in this country. albeit criminally in this case. So in every sense, it breaks down the pillars, the rafters, the structures holding up American society. And of course, Mark, that is all by design.
Wow, that's beautifully put, and so frightening, quite frankly. Stephen Miller, I discussed this somewhat with Victor Davis Hanson last night, and we both said, of course, this is not replacement theory, this is replacement reality. And Marxists and other leftists on college campuses, professors have written about this. And they condemn the white Europeans for settling this country, and that white Europeans are actually the illegal aliens. And every other person in the world, particularly in our hemisphere, who wishes to come to the United States, they are the indigenous peoples. So why do Biden, the Democrats, and their media pretend they're actually not doing what they're doing? If they're doing something else, do they mind explaining it to us? Because I cannot even think of another rationale for allowing over 10 million foreigners in this country, most of whom aren't vetted, and many of whom are dangerous.
Well, Mark, once again, I mean, you've asked exactly the right question. Is there another explanation? Of course there isn't another explanation. If there was, they would be saying it. They'd be saying, oh, no. We have a very straightforward reason for releasing on demand any illegal alien who shows up at our border and resettling them in their destination city of choice. They have been open for years. I mean, I grew up in Southern California, and I can remember from the age I was in high school especially, that the left talked openly about the fact that they saw mass illegal immigration as a social justice endeavor to reduce the voting and economic power of the descendants of the people who founded and settled this country, and to bring in people that were the victims in their mind of European colonialism and European conquest and Western expansionism. And they were very open about this and have been for so many years. And so you'll just have to excuse me for being outraged to now have major corporate media figures saying, oh, it's some kind of conspiracy theory that there's some sort of demographic or other goal to having a wide open border. I mean, they've been saying it for years. This, Mark, isn't a disparagement of any individual migrant or any individual person of whatever country they may come from. It is just a simple statement of fact about the world in which we are living. We are living in a world in which the Democratic Party believes that it will be more powerful well into the future if it imports a new electorate.
When we come back, Stephen Miller, my question to you is, it's a little bit in the prediction business. The Iowa caucuses are tomorrow. Republican primaries follow from there. Do you think voters or caucus goers who say they have this at the forefront of their minds are going to have this at the forefront of their minds and should have this at the forefront of their minds?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.